Pat McFadden.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle, and I want to begin by congratulating the Right Honourable Member for Kingston and Surbiton for arranging this debate. I just want to make a couple of points because I think this debate is timely given the approach of the autumn budget in a couple of weeks' time. In the West Midlands, our police force has lost 145 million in real terms from its budget since 2010. That has resulted in a loss of 2,000 police officers and a further loss of a considerable number of civilian, non-uniformed policing staff. Crime in the region is up 14% on the latest figures. Some crimes are up by more than this. Burglary is up 31%, car crime by a similar amount, and all of this at a time when the country is obviously coping with a very significant terrorism threat, which requires significant police resources. Now, the effect of all this is obvious, and it's deep, and it's profound. If people do not feel safe in their community, if they don't feel safe on their streets, if they don't feel safe in their homes, then they are not free to go about their lives. Fear of crime destroys liberty. And nor does this apply equally. Lower income communities and people on lower incomes suffer the most because they don't have the options available to some wealthier citizens. They cannot live in a gated community. They don't have the options sometimes of moving to a more expensive property, perhaps in an area with lower crime. So crime is an issue not just of safety, it's an issue of liberty, and it's an issue of equality too. And that is why we should be deeply concerned at the juxtaposition of falling police numbers and rising crime, which is what the country now faces. And I just want to make an obvious... I'm happy to give way.
I'm grateful for him giving way. I just want to stress my support for what he's just said, because I think it's an argument that's not heard enough, that policing and resources for policing is an issue about social justice and an issue about freedom. And we have to make that argument, because I think whether it's the newspapers, whether it's House, whether it's the establishment, don't understand the significance of extra police in our communities for the poorest and most vulnerable in our communities.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with what the Right Honourable Member has just said. As I said, this is an issue of liberty and it's an issue of equality too. But I want to make an obvious political point about this. Let us imagine roles were reversed here. Let us imagine we had a Labour government which was presiding over a huge cut in police numbers and a significant rise in crime. Do we honestly think that members opposite would be saying it's got nothing to do with police numbers? I don't think so. I know, Ms. Dorries, that opposition can do strange things to a political party and the conclusions that it sometimes reaches. But so can government make members opposite, particularly backbench members, end up defending the indefensible. It is simply indefensible to continue with police cuts after what we've had in the last 7 years in the light of both the terrorism threat and now the recorded crime figures which are showing the rises that I've set out in the West Midlands. So I want to use today to make my appeal to the Minister to consult with the Chancellor to say that enough is enough, that cuts in policing have gone too far, that this is affecting people's liberties, that it's an issue of equality too, and that we want to see fair funding for police forces right around the country so that we can give the community both the visible presence and the real protection against crime that they deserve.
Yeah.